This morning, I hadn't even finished turning the key in the ignition when Mrs. Whitmore stormed across my driveway like she was leading a parade, clutching a Bluetooth speaker the size of a briefcase. And then her voice, amplified, sharp, cut across the neighborhood, blasting through every window and waking up anyone who wasn't already staring out. 911. I need to report a theft in progress. The man in the blue BMW is leaving with my car that was stolen last night. You can imagine the scene. Engine idling, me frozen in the driver's seat, my daughter Sophie strapped in the back, while neighbors started peeking out their doors like prairie dogs, phones already in hand. It was a setup, that much was clear, but I couldn't yet tell who the prey was supposed to be. See, my name's Marcus Thompson. I'm 35, a cybersecurity engineer, and all I wanted when I moved to Rosewood Heights after my divorce was a quiet place to raise Sophie. Schools were good, streets were clean, and the homes looked like postcards. But quiet neighborhoods have a way of harboring the loudest people, and in ours, that was Karen Whitmore, chair of the Property Values Committee, a role she wielded like she was judge, jury, and executioner. She had the pink clipboard, the ruler, the tracksuit that screamed, "I have time to ruin your morning." And now, apparently, a fake crime report staged on my front lawn. Sophie leaned forward and whispered, "Daddy, she's doing it again." And that whisper, it gutted me, because no kid should ever have to grow used to grown-ups acting like children. I glanced around and sure enough, the audience was gathering. Mrs. Patterson with her coffee, already dialing up her sister. Aiden from across the street, phone out, red light blinking, live streaming this circus to TikTok. Even Derek Hayes, our HOA president, and Linda Morrison, his shadow of a treasurer, standing there in business attire like they'd been waiting for this show. And then the so-called witness, Jerry, though I knew him as Bob, Whitmore's boyfriend, dressed in a fake UPS uniform. He boomed out a story about seeing my car in Karen's driveway at 2 a.m., but it didn't add up, not even close. And here's where the first twist landed. The real play wasn't about some imaginary stolen car. This was about something bigger. You could see it in Karen's eyes, cold, calculating. The dead roses left at my door, the anonymous HOA complaints, even the GPS tracker I'd found under my car that morning. It all pointed to a campaign. They weren't trying to catch me stealing. They were trying to drive me out. So I stepped out of my car, slow and calm, while adrenaline lit my veins. Sophie watched through the rearview mirror, scared but trusting me. "Mrs. Whitmore," I said evenly, "my car hasn't moved in 2 days." The crowd murmured, Derek smirked, and Karen pulled out her evidence, a handwritten confession supposedly by me, admitting to joyriding neighbors' cars. She read it aloud like she was unveiling scripture. But when I took it from her and scrawled my signature left-handed for everyone to see, the forgery cracked wide open. And then came Sophie again, her voice carrying like truth always does. "Mrs. Whitmore, Daddy fixed your computer last year when it broke. You brought us cookies after." That cut deeper than any data log or video could, because suddenly the crowd remembered. They'd seen me help people, not hurt them. But Karen wasn't done. She smiled, that icy smile of someone playing a longer game. And I knew then the theft accusation was just the bait. I pulled out my iPad and showed the real evidence. Weeks of surveillance footage. Karen and Bob planting roses at midnight, crawling under my BMW with the tracker, fumbling with universal remotes to break into my garage. And the piece de resistance? Footage of them staging fake shadows and headlights to make it look like my car was leaving her driveway. It was theater, badly directed and perfectly captured. The crowd shifted, gasps, mutters, betrayal setting in. And then Sophie, once again, sealed it. If Jerry was walking his dog, where's the dog now? The man stammered, red-faced, no dog in sight. No truck either. Checkmate. And then came the second twist. Sophie picked up a paper that had slipped from Karen's clipboard and asked, "Daddy, what's a blackmail letter?" The page was a smoking gun, Karen's handwriting, demanding $5,000 fines unless I cooperated. And when the crowd exploded in outrage, Derek stepped in, not to defend me, but to reveal the real scheme. A secret deal to sell out Rosewood Heights for millions, forcing families to move, so his construction company, and Karen as property manager. Could cash in.it unraveled fast from there. Linda cracked under pressure, confessing she'd leaked me financial documents. Aiden's livestream blew up to thousands of viewers, and someone online dug up proof that Derek's construction firm was tied directly to Pinnacle Development, the same company trying to buy us out. The fraud, the harassment, the fees, all of it made sense. It wasn't just Karen's crusade. It was an organized campaign to bankrupt us, bully us, and strip our homes from under us. The crowd turned. Years of petty HOA citations suddenly looked like what they were: deliberate tactics. Patterson sobbed, Rodriguez cursed, Coach Williams confronted Derek about betrayal. And then, sirens. Not local police, but black SUVs with government plates. FBI agents, led by Sarah Martinez, stepped out, announcing arrests for fraud, wire fraud, embezzlement, the works. The handcuffs clicked. Derek's smirk vanished. Karen screamed entrapment. And Sophie, my little girl, stood tall and defended me in front of everyone, reminding them I'd only ever helped. But here's the thing. You'd think the story ended there. The villains hauled off, the neighborhood saved. Except corruption doesn't just disappear when one HOA goes down. Agent Martinez told us we weren't alone. 17 other neighborhoods across 7 states had been targeted by the same scheme. Our fight was one battle in a much bigger war. And I'll never forget Sophie asking me later, serious as ever, "Daddy, are we going to help them too?" And what could I say? After everything, after watching neighbors who doubted me rally around the truth, after seeing a community rise from the edge of collapse, there was only one answer. YES.SO. Here's where I leave it with you. If you discovered your HOA was stealing from residents, blackmailing families, planning to bulldoze your neighborhood, would you fight back like we did, or would you try to keep the peace and avoid the storm? Because that's the real question, right? When corruption shows up on your doorstep with a pink clipboard and a fake witness, do you back down, or do you stand your ground? Tell me in the comments, because this story, it isn't just about Rosewood Heights. It's about every community where good people are forced to choose between silence and justice. And trust me, the fight isn't over. The week after the arrests, life in Rosewood Heights looked almost normal on the surface. Kids riding their bikes, sprinklers ticking across lawns, Mrs. Patterson tending her roses like nothing had happened. But underneath, you could feel the shift, the way people looked each other in the eye now, the way they stopped in the street to actually talk instead of pretending not to see one another. And yet, I couldn't shake the sense that we'd only just opened the first chapter of something bigger. You know what I mean? It's like when you finish a fight thinking the bully's finally been knocked out, only to realize he's got older brothers waiting around the corner. That was the feeling in my gut. And sure enough, it didn't take long for the next call to come. I was sitting with Sophie at the kitchen table, helping her with spelling homework. Though honestly, she was teaching me more than I was teaching her, when my phone buzzed with a message from a woman named Sarah Chun. Her neighborhood, Sunset Gardens, was facing emergency assessments of 10 grand per family, with foreclosure threats if they didn't pay in 30 days. 43 families begging for help. I looked at Sophie, and before I could even ask, she said, "We have to help them, Daddy, just like we did here." And that was it. Out of the mouths of kids comes the kind of moral clarity adults spend their lives trying to justify. The next weekend, we drove 2 hours north to Fairfield Township. Sunset Gardens looked eerily familiar. Manicured lawns, pristine fences, and that same fake tranquility hanging in the air like a stage set. Their HOA president, a man named Carl Benson, greeted us with a handshake that was too firm, the kind meant to dominate. His smile didn't reach his eyes, and every sentence out of his mouth sounded like it had been polished by a lawyer. But what really caught my attention wasn't Carl. It was the man standing just behind him, tall, lean, with a scar down his cheek and the kind of posture you only see in military or law enforcement. He didn't introduce himself, just stood there watching me like he already knew who I was. And in that instant, I realized Sunset Gardens wasn't just another Rosewood Heights situation. This was something darker. The families there told me the same story we'd lived. Constant citations for ridiculous violations, sudden fee increases, anonymous complaints designed to push them into desperation. Only this time, the stakes were higher. Some families had already packed up and left, their homes snapped up by a holding company connected to Carl's brother-in-law. And buried in their paperwork was a clause authorizing the HOA board to take legal possession of properties in default, something I'd never seen before that I started digging. And here's the twist. While I was going through Sunset Gardens financials late one night, I found the same fingerprints as in Rosewood Heights. Fake invoices, shell companies, money flowing out like a broken faucet. But then I stumbled on something else. Payments not just to construction firms, but to a private security outfit registered in Nevada. And when I traced the name, my stomach sank. It was connected to the scar-faced man who'd been watching me. Turns out, his name was Grant Maddox, a former federal agent gone private. He wasn't just muscle, he was cleanup. The kind of guy you bring in when harassment isn't enough and you need families scared for more than their pocketbooks. That night, as I sat in a borrowed office at the community center, I heard the faint click of the door. Maddox stepped in. No smile, no clipboard, just that low, calm voice of someone who's carried a gun longer than I've been alive. You need to walk away, Marcus. Rosewood Heights was one thing, but this is above your pay grade. I should have been afraid. And yeah, my hands were sweating under the table, but something about the way he said it, like he was tired, like maybe he didn't fully believe in what he was doing, gave me pause. I told him, families are being robbed of their homes. You were sworn once to protect people. Does that mean nothing to you now? For just a second, I saw it, a flicker of conflict in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by cold steel. Last warning, he said, before slipping out the door as quietly as he came. I didn't tell Sophie everything, but she knew enough. Kids always do. He's scared, she said later. Not of you, Daddy. Of something bigger. And she wasn't wrong. Because when the FBI came back with me to Sunset Gardens, led again by Agent Martinez, we uncovered not just local corruption, but ties to a national development consortium, the kind that spends millions on lobbyists and lawyers to make problems disappear. Rosewood Heights was a skirmish. Sunset Gardens was a battlefield. And Maddox, whether he knew it or not, had just shown me there was a war coming. Here's where I leave it with you. If you found out your community was just one piece in a national machine designed to strip ordinary families of their homes, would you keep your head down and hope it passed you by? Or would you stand up knowing the fight might bring men like Maddox to your door? Because me, I've already made my choice. And this time, I'm not just fighting for Rosewood Heights. I'm fighting for every family who thought they bought a home when really, they were stepping onto a battlefield. So tell me, what would you do? Would you walk away like Maddox told me to, or would you stand and fight, even if the enemy was bigger than you ever imagined?